we go.
Okay, so thank you everyone for coming along. I'm going to cover 4 main points tonight. Firstly, what the current research shows. Hang on, why is it moving? There we are. Some of the materials that are out there that are available for extensive reading. How to figure out a good start point to read it and make sure you're not reading at too high of a level. Oops, and there we are. And finally, how to determine if a text you are interested in reading is right at the right level for you. So first of all, in terms of where the research is now, and this hasn't really changed much since I presented it last year, but basically for beginners, a target of 4 graded readers per week is a realistic goal. For those in their second year, 20 to 30 minutes per day is very feasible. And beyond that, you probably want to be reading more than 15 minutes per day. Yeah, okay. But when it comes to reading for yourself, you can do more than that depending on how busy you are. If you want to see meaningful improvements to your Japanese relatively quickly, I would say that you should be aiming to read for about 30 minutes per day, but sustained concentration in a foreign language is very draining at first, and you should work your way up to 30 minutes rather than starting from that. So I would recommend starting from 1 graded reader per day or 10 minutes per day, whichever one is shortest, and working your way up from there. So currently, Japanese graded reading materials vary widely in terms of their vocabulary, grammar, style, and other factors that determine comprehensibility. And there is no one common system used. So unfortunately, the books tend to finish at very low vocabulary level, so usually only around 2,000 to 3,000 lexemes, which is quite different to word families or head words. If that is the system you're used to measuring reading material vocabulary levels with. So we really do have to branch out and use L1 Japanese materials, such as graded readers for Japanese children and books for young adults and adults. There are 3 main sources that I have found for digitally available texts, which may be useful for Japanese extensive reading beyond the specifically designed graded readers, which are Learn Natively, which has a somewhat formalized book grading system, but basically it relies on readers to rank books. You know, was this book harder or easier than another book that you have read, and it sort of shuffles them around based on that. Also Bunko, which has no grading system, but it has a huge wealth of text available. And Storyweaver, which will be great if you have young children. And it does have a grading system, but it is not one that is usable for non-native speakers. So when I checked some of the books, even at their lowest level, they had grammar that was from the second textbook of Genki, the Genki textbook series. So even though it's at their lowest level, it's actually not, for non-native speakers, it's not an easy book. Okay. So in terms of graded reader series, there are 3 main groups that I want to focus on. So the first one is the NPO Taroku supporters. The second one is the Sakura graded readers. And the third one, there is Yomimono Ippai. NPO Taroku supporters has the most number of free materials available, and it publishes its vocabulary, grammar, and kanji list. And they have been a real driver of the creation of extensive reading materials for learners. Yomimono Ippai has a large number of short stories written by university students, and the organizer, Mitsue Tabata Sandom, does correct the students' language mistakes before publishing the books on the site. And Sakura Graded Readers is the only group that uses an actual word frequency list for their vocabulary levels, and their word bands go up to 4,500 words. So their work is most helpful for learners looking to move beyond graded reading materials. Okay, so roughly speaking, and I do mean roughly, here are how most of the graded reading groups' materials line up. But I have to say, I have to emphasize it is very rough. I'm mainly basing this on the provided JLPT levels and the word levels that the publishers state. So you should exercise your own judgment. And some of them, the book numbers might need a little bit of updating, because I haven't checked the sites like Tongari or Taroku no Hiroba in a while. But I did just check Yomimono Ippai and the NPO Taroku supporters most recently, and they've added a lot of books, which is great. So now we have nearly 600 graded reading texts available, which is a big improvement on even last year when it was about 450. So, and that's mostly been driven by the NPO Taroku supporters group. Okay. But as you can see, the word levels that the publishers give are out of sync with the actual word levels of the books according to word frequency in native Japanese texts. However, the Sakura graded readers group is more in line, but only really at the proportion of 90% word coverage. So it's not ideal, but it is much better than the other groups. You can see that there is, not huge jumps. Like here you can see, it could be at the 2,000 word level or the 20,000 word level, you don't know. Whereas for Sakura graded readers, it is within that same word band at least. So I'm going to spotlight a couple of the best digital resources. And the first one is the NPO Taroku supporters page. And don't worry, you can change it to English if you want to. You'll see up in the top corner on the website here. So they now have 112 books available digitally for free across 6 graded reading levels. And many of them have audio too, so you can listen as well as read. And the audio speed increases as the levels increase. So for level 0, it's quite slow. And for level 3, it's more like normal speech. And I think that's a really nice touch. They have also, in addition, about 140 more books that are only available as physical books. So you do have to pay for them, but I think they're pretty easily available and easy to get outside of Japan as well. With the print books, they have an even easier level below level 0, which they're calling starter level, but there's only about 6 or 7 books available at this level at the moment, as far as I can see. The second resource I want to spotlight is the Sakura graded readers, and this is my most recommended resource. They have a focus on creating substantial stories, even at the very lowest book levels. So even at the 550 word level, one story is nearly 10,000 characters long. And despite the boring looking covers, they have got generally good feedback from students. And Taro no Natsuyasumi has definitely been a hit with students. Yeah. Okay. And then finally, I'm sure there are people who would like to keep up with the news in Japan. So the last digital resource I'll spotlight is the NHK Easy News. Each day the team seems to take 4 stories from the main NHK News website and shorten and simplify them for Japanese learners. They link to the original news story as well, so if you want to, you can go to that and compare it. You can toggle furigana on and off. You can toggle the color codes on and off. You'll see there are color codes here for people's names, country, prefecture, town names, place names, that's what they're called, and then company group names, that kind of thing. Just to help with identifying what words are and that sort of thing for learners. And there is audio, but it's computer generated, and I find that it sounds quite strange and it's quite difficult to understand sometimes. And also, if you mouse over underlined words in the text, you get a dictionary definition in simple Japanese. So, but of course, all of the graded material created for non-native speakers is not going to be enough. And you will need to branch out into materials written for Japanese native speakers. And so my recommendation in terms of L1 Japanese text, if you don't mind reading children's books, is the Jippun de Yomeru series. Okay. There is a huge variety of material to read, and your local library in Japan probably already has many of these books. And they could make even ideal commuting books because they're not very heavy and they have a large font size, so it's easy to read when you're on the train or the bus. The kanji has furigana unless it has been taught to students in previous years. And the books that aren't graded by year tend to have full furigana. So most of these ones, like Jippun de Yomeru Ohanashi, there'll be 1年生, 2年生, 3年生, 4年生, 5年生, 6年生. But then these ones like the Sekai no Rupan and Owarai Rakugo, Hajimete no Rakugo, there's just one of those. So those ones, they would have the full furigana. They also have like a whole lot of non-fiction series as well, like Genki, sports people, leaders, inventors, adventurers, that kind of thing, real stories, true stories, that kind of thing. So there's a huge amount. I think there's more than like 140 of these books. So I do highly recommend them, and they're pretty cheap. They're like probably 1,000 yen or less each. And you can see that you get, 12 to 14 texts usually with each book. I also recommend 2 other series called Naze Doshite and Shite Bikkuri. The texts are shorter, so they're usually around 800 characters. So you get more text per book, so like 30 to 50 stories per book kind of thing. And they'll be on things like, why does your skin get wrinkly in the bath? Or how do seeds germinate? That kind of thing. So they are quite basic. And again, you have to have, if you have any kind of affective barrier where you don't want to be reading Japanese children's books, these aren't going to be the books for you. But if you don't have that, then I do highly recommend these. There are also some other smaller series along the same lines, and with the Dokusho Taimu series, they even go up to chugakko, so junior high school, 1年, 3年生 as well. So 6 books for chugakko. Did you get the screenshot, Patrick? Okay. And there's also another series which I couldn't fit on here. It's called Jippun de Wakaru, and it's shogakko science textbook for 1, 2, 3年生. So there's like 3 books in that small series, but still, it's the same kind of thing as the others. So overall, I would say these books are pretty good value because there are quite a few texts, even in this small data set. There's a very small sample of the total number of books in these series. You can see that there are a lot within this 1,000 to 5,000 lexeme range. So well within upper beginner to intermediate level learners. So students who are studying the Genki textbook series as foreign language learners, so I'm thinking about students at my university, they would normally have a vocabulary in the range of like 2,000 to 4,000 lexemes after finishing Genki Volume 1 and 2, depending on if they are Chinese background learners or non-Chinese background learners. So definitely for them, there are quite a few stories that are well within their reach. So it's a good investment for us to have these kind of books available. But as you can see also, there are some unexpectedly difficult texts as well. So you have to really, as a student or teacher or learner yourself, you have to exercise your own judgment. But of course, that material is not really that useful if you don't know what you or your students' reading level might be. So first, you'll need to read below your comprehension level to get out of the habit of using Japanese. And this is really important because without this, extensive reading is just really not that effective. If you're constantly translating sentences or parts of sentences even into English or your native language, you're just not going to build up that fluency in Japanese that is, kind of the whole point of doing extensive reading. And secondly, you or your students should be reading at a level where you are reading and understanding in Japanese without using your native language to comprehend the text, and you should know if you are reading at that level where you are able to comprehend the text without using your native language. If you don't know, if you're even a little bit unsure, you have to move down a level, because if you're not sure that you're 100%, 1000%, you knew in your gut that you understood everything in that book, then you're not reading at the right level to get out of that habit of translating and not thinking and feeling in Japanese, experiencing the text in Japanese. Okay. So, of course, vocabulary plays a key role in helping you to understand where a good place to start might be. So you need to check you or your students' vocabulary knowledge level. You have two options if you want to check their vocabulary knowledge against the most frequent words in Japanese: the Frequency Dictionary of Japanese, which is not free, or Matsushita's General Learners List, which is free. Matsushita's list also covers the first 20,000 lexemes, whereas the Frequency Dictionary only covers the first 5,000. So if you're living in Japan, I would say that Matsushita's list is the better option for you. So you can either test yourself using the list, or you can email me and I can give you access to my Japanese vocabulary levels tests. If you test yourself, then you can use the simple yes/no method. So you'll need to sample the list, and I recommend sampling every 25th word, and ask yourself if you know the word or not. By taking a systematic sample, the list is easy to separate into 500 or 1,000 word bands, and the lowest word band, where you scored less than 95%, is probably a good place to start, although you should move down if it's uncomfortable or you can't read and understand completely in Japanese. Okay, but how do you know? So you know your vocabulary level, but you know it's way higher than the graded readers, and you've already done some prep work, so you're reading and understanding in Japanese. Now you need to know how to find material out there in the wild that is at the right level for you. Hang on. So for example, sites like Matcha Tourism Magazine or Aozora Bunko, where the material is not graded at all, but it might be of interest to you. Matsushita and Suganaga created their Japanese lexical analyzer, which you can use. It is much more useful than the English version because it covers the first 20,000 lexemes, which is the same as Matsushita's General Learners List. So this is another reason to use Matsushita's list, even though the first 1,288 lexemes are out of order, because it means that you can match your vocabulary knowledge to the digital materials much more easily. So the reason why the first 1,288 lexemes are out of order is because they form the vocabulary list for the old JLPT level 3 and level 4. And because so many learner materials are based on those, Matsushita made a pedagogically based decision to move those to the front of the list so that learners, when they're looking for digital materials, they can, those words are more useful for them, just because a lot of the learner materials out there are based on that. So for example, how to use the lexical analyzer. So I'm going to be using a text from a year 3 graded reader from the graded reader series Shin Kokoro ni Nokoru. So you can see that the other stories in the book, we have a huge range, but this one, the 95% vocabulary coverage level is between 4,000 and 5,000 lexemes. So you enter it into the input box, and then you click on Hante, which is this button down here. And then it will analyze the text for you. And this is what the output looks like in the top half of the screen. So any words in red, they are in the on the list. So that means they are in the top 20,000 lexemes. Words that are in green are off the list, so beyond 20,000 words, and words that are in black are punctuation or assumed known words. Now, sometimes it doesn't quite pass the words correctly, as you can see here. So you either need to manually fix those words, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it's better just to delete that word that is throwing off your data, because it doesn't matter, 1 word, 2 words, it doesn't make a huge difference. So in this bottom half of the screen, so this will appear in the top half, and then below that you'll get a huge long table all the way down to the beyond 20,000 word mark. And you can see that the first time that the coverage portion, that's what this column gives you here, exceeds 95%, is at the 4,000 to 5,000 word level. Okay. So if you know 95 to 100% of all the words in the bands below that level, then you're probably okay to start exploring text at this level. So then this this text here, if it looks interesting to you, you could start reading it and see how you go. Okay. Okay. And these are some of the links to the useful materials. So if you go to this top link for NPO Taraku supporters, then that will give you, yeah, let me change my view a little bit so I can see the slide without having to move my head. So the top one, that gives you a list of a whole lot of free graded websites. Sorry, starting to lose my concentration. It's 11:30 here, so I'm a little bit tired. So it gives you the links to the other graded reading materials websites that I put up in the table earlier on in the slideshow. And then the second link, this gives you all of the free books created by the writers for the NPO Taraku series, and a lot of the books that from organizations that use the NPO Taraku supporters grading list as well. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so between the two, you can get good coverage, and this just sorts it in order of easiest to hardest. There's also a printed series of books by Oxford Brookes University in the UK. There's only 4 of those. So it's only a very small series at the moment. It's the website for NHK Easy, Matcha Tourism Magazine, Easy Japanese version. I think it has got a lot of advertising, paid promotions, but it does also have a lot of really interesting articles about culture, history, places to go in Japan, things to do and see. So if you are in Japan, it's probably very interesting for you. There, and you just need to use the easy Japanese version. Or you could try the non-easy one, but the non-easy one doesn't have the furigana on the kanji, so it's a little bit more tricky. I don't know, I think maybe we can start an email campaign to the Sendai International School of Japanese to start publishing their very excellent series of books again. They have about 15 different graded readers, so 2 sets focus on Sendai, and another set was released in 2000 and when was it? Whenever the big earthquake in Kumamoto happened. After that, they did a bit of a fundraising series, so it was all about Kumamoto. But unfortunately, they are out of print and sold out. But because it's, you know, published by the independent publisher, maybe they will start again if you email it, if enough people email through the school. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. A brief introduction to graded readers in Japanese that learners can use. Okay.
All right, thanks, Kimberly. I had one question that I dropped in the chat. You mind if I ask that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Let me stop sharing.
Like earlier, you were showing us the JLEX analyzer.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it would show in red all of the words that are within the 20,000 lexemes. But is there a way to kind of set that threshold lower? Say, like, I only wanted to check if it's within the first 5,000.
Hang on, let me. I'm just trying to find where I have that. Somewhere along here. Is that it? That's it. That's not it. Sorry, just bear with me a second. One of them turned up late. That's okay. So if you go to that website, basically it doesn't color code the words. It doesn't color code the words that are in the 1000 level or the 2000 level or the 3000 level, the way that the English lexical profiler does. Basically it just it says, okay, these are all the words that are on the list, and then you just have to go down. If I can bring the PowerPoint back up, I guess. Yeah, so if you have a look at this, let's just make it a bit bigger. So you just have to sort of go down and you'll see like 79.6% of this text is in the top 1000, is covered by the top 1000 lexemes in Japanese.
Okay, so this output you get this from the analyzer as well?
Yeah,
the summary?
Let me actually open it up. Hang on.
Okay.
Sure. And then and then I'll just go grab that text and pop it in here. So you guys can see the, where's the chat gone? You guys can see the JLEX web page, right? Yep. So you press Hante and then you wait for a little bit because the website's a bit slow, but that's fine. And then you'll see the text is here. And it says, yeah, the outside words are 0.2%, which is fine. So you get here, how many individual words, but that's not necessarily that useful for my purposes, at least. 40 words are between 1286 and 4000. And then, so he calls them like beginner, what is it? Beginner, intermediate, upper intermediate, something like that. What I'm more interested, what I find more useful is the ones down here where it gives you the coverage percentage. So then you can see, okay, you know, between 3,000 and 4,000 words, that accounts for 91% of the text, kind of thing. If you wanted to get to 98%, you'd have to actually know like more than 20,000 words. But generally that means there's like, here we are, 8 words are causing that. So depending on the length of the text and what kind of words they are, where they are, that you might not need to worry about that at all. Like sometimes it's very obvious what they are, or you don't really need to bother, right? Yeah, that's kind of how that website works. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but it is really, really handy. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it's really useful for a reader. For a teacher adapting a text, it would have been nice to have the.
It looks like you can do a range. I was just playing with it. So, and it won't highlight everything. Those, yeah, right there. Above that, the 2 boxes. It looks like I don't really understand the numbers of everything, but
So this one is about Alzora Bunko.
Well, like, because I put 600 in that second box, and then
I see.
It only highlights red up to that amount.
That's really handy. I didn't know about this. Thank you. There you are. There you are, Patrick.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, this is an excellent new function. Thank you, Devin. See, I've just been going, I completely ignore what's going on up there. And I zoom straight down and I'm like, okay, great. I can use this text. Fine.
I've used an English one like this before, and it had that. So I was like, I wonder if that has it. So I was playing with it, and I just saw it.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, this is a really handy new function. I can't believe I never actually like looked at it properly. I was just like, oh yeah, Hante, that's good enough. I know what I'm doing now. Okay, any more questions?
So just a question about the numbers. So do the numbers, like, how do they correspond to the JLPT test? Because I don't know any like the research numbers, but obviously I know the JLPT test.
So the JLPT, so the old version of the JLPT, that vocabulary list has been sort of published, and that was the one heavily sampled from newspaper text and was never very useful for learners anyway. But that's what a lot of these, if I go back to the PowerPoint, give me a second. So if we come back up to, so you'll see that most of these, not most, but a lot of them are sort of based on the JLPT, but I assume that they're based on the old JLPT word list, because the version of the JLPT that's post 2010, they haven't published their word list. There's an article that I read and they were like, oh, we sampled from all these frequency lists and we've updated our JLPT to reflect that, and look at the items, they perform so much better. And it's like, okay, cool, but like which words and
right,
like which like yeah, the old version was, in a way, it was a little bit better for students because they were like, okay, it's 6,000 words that I need to know. But the new version is like, they don't give any indication of how many, like for N3, should you be aiming for 4,000 words? Should you be aiming for 7,000 words? For N1, you know, is it 10,000 words? Is it 20,000 words now? You don't really know what vocabulary level you should be aiming for. So the JLPT is, as a benchmark, is not really that useful. And I would focus more on word frequency, which is like, so highly frequent words in Japanese. Like obviously the number one is no, you know, not,
Right.
which is like the Japanese version of the in English. Like, yeah, it accounts for a really high proportion of tokens in Japanese text. But I think that by basing your own reading on frequent words, it means that you're actually going to be encountering the words that you're reading also a lot in your daily life as well. And it's sort of like they reinforce each other. And then by knowing that you know those frequent words, you know that you are better prepared to read in Japanese. So yeah, it's more helpful, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
I just thought I would demonstrate the voice for the easy NHK news. So
Yeah.
if anyone was curious about what it sounded
Let me
like.
stop my share. Yeah.
韓国の最高裁判所。仏像は長崎県の寺のもの。
Yeah.
However, if you're reading it on, say, an iOS device, you could just have
loading. 再生 Progress bar 009-159残りの時間10分仏像盗まれてその後韓国でいました韓国のプソク寺寺は2016
So the iOS voices are a little bit different, and you can use the accessibility functions for text to speech. Although there's some kind of bug within the iPhone that all of a sudden the voice sounds like it's a little bit underwater or under a blanket, and then it goes back to being clear maybe 15 or 20 minutes later. But yeah, the website provided voices are usually garbage, but there are better voices that are coming out. So you might be able to just get something through iOS. And a lot of times you just do it. You can set it up so that you just swipe down 2 fingers from the top and it'll read whatever text is on the screen. So you don't have to set it's in Japanese or not. So the phone will just realize this part's in English, this part's in French, this part's in Japanese, and change the voice accordingly. So
That's
pretty
really
useful.
handy. I would say that the voices provided for the NPO Taroku supporters books are much nicer. And yeah, let me see if I can open one up.
Are those recorded by volunteers?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm just opening up a random book. Let me share screen. Where am I? Oh, hang on. Sorry. I forgot to share screen with sound.
Yep, I tried to remind you to check the box, but I had my microphone muted.
That's okay. Okay.
お母さんと2人で暮らしています。
あ、間違った。
風庵は怠け者です。レベル2。怠け者の風庵。風庵は若い男です。 お母さんと2人で暮らしています。フーアンは怠け者です。働きません。毎日昼まで寝ています。
So you can see that the voices are a lot nicer than the NHK ones. And so this is speed for level 2. If I can choose like a level 4.
Level 4別府観光の父油屋熊八
Oh, I think this sounds like Mitsue. I wonder if she did this one.
九州の大分県に別府という町があります。別府は温泉があって、昔から人々が集まる町でした。別府駅の前にこんな像があります。これは油屋熊八という人の像です。熊八は約100年前、日本で初めて別府にバスガイド付きのバスツアーを計画しました。
So you can see that their voices are a lot nicer there.
Yeah, those are definitely real people.
Yeah.
Near the bottom of the screen, there are a few things as small green letters.
Mm.
I think one of them was a link to get a printable PDF.
Yeah, so all of these can be downloaded as PDFs. So PDFs, and I don't know what the difference between the PDF and the printing PDF is. They seem the same to me when I download them, so I don't really know what the difference is. And you can also download the MP3s of some of the voice files as well. So yeah.
So it seems like a really good choice if your classroom is not going to have internet connection and students won't have internet connection when they're at home or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Nice.
exactly. Yeah, you can make a CD for students, one would assume. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I don't know what the laws are, but I mean, you know, I'm sure if it's for educational purposes, it's fine.
Oh, so they're offering it for free, right?
Yeah, they are. So
I'd be hard
but
to find a situation that you couldn't use it.
yeah, I mean, I do, even though this this website they base their books on the JLPT standards, they do at least make let me share my screen again. They make the word list available. No, sorry. So the vocabulary list and the sentences, and if you download them, you have like the kanji and everything as well. So it is, you know, transparent. And even though, as you might remember from the PowerPoint, the vocabulary coverage according to word frequency is like 2 to 20,000 words, even at level 0. There's still sometimes that is because like really useful words for learners are not actually that frequent for Japanese L1 text, like words like jikanwari, for example. So it's very useful for learners, but it doesn't appear in the top 20,000 lexemes. So yeah, there's those kinds of things which can impact the frequency rating, which is why you should always use your own judgment. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Okay. All right. No more questions then. I guess, Sandra, can you stop the
Yes, I
recording?
will just hang on a moment. I will stop the recording. Thank you very much. That was very interesting.